Good morning, everyone. I've been asked a few times of how to make this yuzu tofu cheesecake. But because the original recipe my friend Sandra shared with me is in Canto, so I wasn't able to share it with everyone. And since yesterday I made the cake again and I have all the ingredients, I thought that, this is the best opportunity I can, make this recipe in English. And if I procrastinated, I don't think it will ever happen. So here is the recipe. So the secret ingredient that makes this recipe so light and refreshing is the tofu. And the tofu you want to get from the Asian grocery shop is the Silken tofu. This one is a packet of 300 grams, and you will need half of the packet each time. And the other main ingredient is the cream cheese. I get the Philadelphia, the light one. The consistency is slightly softer than the original one. And you will need a whipping cream. You can get the light one as well. I got the full cream just because this one is in a smaller package. And the other ingredient you will need from Asian grocery shop is the honey citron tea gem. I know a lot of Asian friends, usually make tea with this. I really like it myself. But this will be kind of like the flavoring for this cheesecake, in which is a really, really beautiful Asian twist. And the other ingredients, the one I guess you probably will have in your home is the butter. I use the unsalted one. Sugar, so butter is 30 grams and sugar is 25 grams. And you will need a cookie for the base of the cheesecake as well. I use the Digestive original, and if you want to make it even lighter, as my friend Sandra suggested, the Arnold's Mary cookie is really good as well. I've used that before. And then one last ingredient, you may have it on your shelf, is the gelatin leaves. I don't use the powder, I use the leaves. And you won't, this is a packet of 12 leaves in it, and you will need around 5 to 6. So you can make 2 out of this packet. These are the tools that you'll be needing for this recipe besides your day-to-day bowls. The most important one is a 6-inch cake mold. I already cut an oven paper underneath. That's just for easy removing of the cake. And a Ziploc bag for the cookies, and a metal spatula for removing the cake, a hand mixer, several big bowls for whipping and mixing, a sieve, and a rubber spatula. The first thing I would do out of every steps is to put the butter into hot water bath, and then you can do the other process and the butter can start to melt. So just like that. So the butter is actually not touching the water, and that's why it's called a water bath, and you just put that aside. The next thing you do is to take 4 digestive cookies and smash them with a wine bottle. You want to smash them into really tiny pieces, so at the end when you put it as the base of your cake, it does taste like it's a crust for your cake rather than like it's still like cookies, if that makes sense. So I would just make sure that these edges are smashed as well, and I would just turn it around a little bit. I'll just check if there's like any really big granules, but I think this is fine. Or just wait for the butter to melt. So the next step is to put the melted butter into the cookies. Just slightly mixing it when you're putting it in. It's really difficult, I guess, when you're doing with one hand. I'll just pour the rest in. Give it a good squeeze. That looks good to me. And we're gonna put that into the mold. It's a funny platform I'm working on. I use the bag itself as a glove when you put the cookie base in. And this recipe is actually very easy to make. The only difficult thing about it is actually the time it needs to be in the fridge. So I would still recommend, like, if you're an organized person, you should make this the day before the event you want to bring it in, or the day you want to eat it. But I'm normally not a very organized person, so I always make it in the morning, and then like for an evening event. So I wake up early before I walk my dog and make sure I have the base and the body of the cake ready and put it in the fridge before I started my day. So push that one. Push the base really tight with your fingers. Use the Ziploc bag as your glove. Okay, I think that looks really good. And this is out of the recipe, but I put this one into the freezer just to, expedite, just to speed up everything. The next step is to whip the cream. I forgot to mention it is 100 ml or 100 gram of the cream, and I will just mix it into the texture of a melted ice cream with medium speed. consistency, you know, when you move the bowl around, it's still moving a little bit, like moving slowly. And I quite like the texture of this, so this is good. One of the steps I will start before I'm making the body of the cake is to put the gelatin into the cold water. So it will soften up, and because this also needs to go into the hot water bath, I will prepare that at the same time as well. And once that gelatin is in this, you know, really soft texture that is ready, it actually doesn't take a very long time, probably just 2 to 3 minutes. And what I found a very good tip of the recipe is that although, you know, normally we remove the excessive like water, but I found for this recipe, if you leave a little bit of water inside, that will make, I guess, the mixture of the gelatin with the cheesecake body more, for some reason is like more, they mix better together. So I'm just gonna remove some of the water, but leave a little bit in. So I think that looks good. And sometimes if I feel like it's not enough, I'll add a little bit in the end when it's all melted. And the next step is the cheese. If you use the light cheese rather than the original, you will not have any issue for this step because, you know, the texture is already very soft. But if you do use the original cream cheese, then, you know, definitely put it into the room temperature for a while, or else it's going to be very difficult to mix it up. So you want to mix the cream cheese with the sugar. So easy to mix with the light cream cheese. So it is half a packet of cream cheese. So that's a 250-gram packet, and then half a packet of tofu. So you mix the tofu in the cheesecake now. Just do the best as you can for this step, because we are going to sieve it later, so you don't need to be too perfect. That actually looks okay to me, maybe a little bit more. I actually have a camera on the top of my head, so I actually don't know like if everything is good. So I sometimes need to stand up and look at it. So if sometimes the things are not in the center, you know, excuse me for that. I think that looks okay, so I'll get the sieve. And you just pour everything into the sieve. Easy peasy. you press through the sieve. Really press it. I would always just also try to scrape the bits on the spatula in the sieve as well. And I'm just gonna show you this part. Like I would turn it upside down, and just to make sure I got everything inside my bowl. And you can see the texture is already very, very silky, smoothie compared to the one I was just randomly mixing. I think that looks good. All right. Next step is mix the cream that you whipped. It's a very easy step as well. It's not like, you know, making the chiffon cake, you know, you have to worry about the egg white. Like if you don't treat it well, it will collapse. So that's why I like to make this cake too. It's just it's very difficult to make any mistakes, so give that a good mix. I think the only mistake you can make for this recipe is that you don't put it in the fridge enough for enough time, and I made that mistake quite often. But it still tastes good, like even if it's like not enough time in the fridge, it will taste more like ice cream rather than cheesecake. Okay, I think that looks good to me. Don't have to be perfect because we're gonna sieve through again after we put the gelatin in. And for the gelatin, I like it to be like a little bit watery like this, because my previous experience is that if you used like if you don't dilute it a little bit, it will have clumps. And then you will sieve through a lot of gelatin after you do the second sieve. So I'm just gonna mix that in to the mixture. Hopefully it's not too bad this time. It looks all right to me because I don't see any clumps coming up. And just give that a little bit a better mix. Sieve it again. Looks good. All right, and use the same one. Use that. So the actual time you are making this cake, I feel like it's not very long, but there are some, you know, steps that just requires more time. I feel like the hot water bath is definitely something that requires more time. For my other cooking, I use like microwave, you know, to heat up the butter. So I think if you do want to speed things up, you can microwave the butter initially rather than using the hot bath. For the gelatin, maybe you can cook it, but I never did that myself, so I can't really say for sure. And you will end up with a lot of bowls, but I use the dishwasher, so it's not really a pain for me to clean up the mess I create. Okay, don't waste any bit. All right, in the back. That looks good to me. All right. The last step and the most important step before you put the cake of the body into the mold is to put the yuzu. Don't put it before the sieve, because then you will lose, you know, the strips from the yuzu jam. And I would put 2 generous, because I really like yuzu, generous of tablespoon of yuzu jam into the mixture. Okay, that's that. And just a gentle mix. Nothing to be afraid of mixing this mixture. You can always have a little bit of a little taste of, if you like, the I guess the intensity of the yuzu enough, and you can add in a bit more. All right, I think that looks good. I'm gonna put on top of the cookie base that was in the freezer. You can just make the top a little bit even with this gray. This is just really for the appearance, so you're not picky about it, then you don't really need to spend that much time. That looks good to me. A little bit. Shake. And I would just, you know, like always, you know, clean the bit I make messy on the top. So when you put the last gelatin coat on, you know, you will not have any, I guess, you know, cake body in it. This is the end result. I'm quite happy with it. So this need to be in the fridge for 4 hours. I've definitely tried to push that before, and I definitely try to put in the freezer. I don't see, like from my experience, I think actually putting in the freezer doesn't make a difference of putting in the fridge. But then I guess if you have time, the best result is to have 4 hours in the fridge before you put the last layer on. But if you're really in a rush, put it in the freezer and then try to shake it. If it's not bouncy, then you know you can put the last layer on. I've done that before. So I'm gonna put this into the fridge now, and I'm gonna start my day, walk Archie, And then, you know, after a few hours, or maybe during lunchtime, I'll come back and then, you know, put the last layer on. Okay, this is the last step after 3 hours. And it's 2 leaves of gelatin melted by warm water bath. And I just normally kind of eyeing how much, you know, water I need to have, maybe in the bowl to have maybe half a centimeter to I think half a centimeter is good. Half a centimeter to maybe 0.8 centimeters of layer on top of the cake. So in my experience, I probably need a little bit more water than this. Well, if you don't know, you can always just add water on top of the cake afterwards as well. So I'll add a little bit more. Just stir this a little. Maybe it's a bit too much. I'll have to see. And I will also add in another a teaspoon of yuzu, just to add flavor to the final layer. And you can also use like edible petals in this layer as well, and you know, sprinkle the way you wanted the pattern to have, because it will be a very beautiful a transparent layer on top. And I think in the original recipe, the girl put like, you know, strips of yuzu like in the beautiful pattern, but I never did any of those. I'm just a bit lazy with the decoration here. And so this is mixed already. I'll just put that into this. So I think the amount is a little bit less than I want it to be, so I just add in like room temperature water, just a bit more, because I like the layer. It's like very pretty. It gives a different texture than the cream cheese to the cake. So I'll add a little bit more water and then just check the thickness if I like it. A little more. And that's it. And this just needs another hour in the fridge and you're ready. Thank you, everyone. This is the way of making yuzu tofu cheesecake. 我觉得好像就可以了，应该还好吧。I was like talking for the whole film, but then I think this one 这样好了，可以，行。I haven't taken the whole thing out. That's okay. 把它推出来这样子。That. And then because there is a baking paper underneath, you can just kind of